Hello everyone, this is Mr. Brain Junkie here, and today we're going to be talking about a superhero film called Krish 3. Be ready for some spoilers ahead. Dr. Rohit receives superpowers from an alien which gives him superhuman strength and intelligence, but he was captured by Dr. Arya and imprisoned for many years. His son, Krishna, was able to free him because he inherited his father's abilities and now takes on the identity as Krish, a superhero who protects the city. Where there are heroes, there are also villains, and in a secret laboratory, a nasty virus is being created by the supervillain Kaal, and he plans to use it to make the world bend to his will. Meanwhile, Dr. Rohit has invented something opposite of destruction, a pen that focuses the energy of the sun onto dead objects and revives them in the process. His technology still requires some work though, as it blew up the thing it was intended to resurrect. He needs a filter that restrains the immense power of the sun. Krish saves the city daily and receives much love from everyone he meets, but as his ordinary self, he gets fired constantly due to his obligation as a superhero and protector of his city. Another crisis appears on the news as a virus decimates the country of Namibia, killing much of its population. Dr. Varun of the World Health Organization tries to reach help from all the scientists to construct an antidote for this deadly virus. Dr. Rohit sees this on the television and calls his friend, who tells him about the situation and how the virus can cause symptoms in humans within 5 minutes of contact. Dr. Varun then receives another call from a scientist who works for Kaal Laboratories and insists on meeting immediately as he has the antidote for the virus and some shocking information about its origins. The doctor tells the scientist to come to his office immediately. Varun arrives and walks into his office only to see a woman in red dress. She holds onto Varun's arms and transforms into the doctor himself, which shocks him to the point of fainting. The other scientist arrives and proceeds to hand over both the antidote and the virus to the impersonator, and explains how Kaal's company manufactured the virus so that they can reap from the people suffering before selling their antidote. The impersonator kills the scientist and leaps off the building. The woman's name is Kaya, one of the superhumans created by Kaal, using his own DNA and the DNA of various animals, thus giving them special abilities. Kaal is paralyzed from the neck down, except for 2 fingers which he can still move. He's a genius nonetheless, and has the ability to move objects with his mind. Every research he has done was aimed at restoring the handicap which he was born with. Because of his unique DNA, he has so far unable to find any human nor animals that can restore his functions. Kaya tells Kaal that over 40% of Namibia's population is infected and the World Health Organization is requesting for their antidote. Kaal refuses as he wants more fear before reaping his massive financial reward from the desperate country. He ramps up his plan after being unhappy about how much money his antidote is generating. He plans to target a larger population and tells his henchmen to begin spreading the virus in their own city. One day, Krishna receives a message from his wife Priya, who tells him to come to a club at night. She celebrates her husband's birthday and informs him that she's pregnant. Overjoyed at the prospect of becoming a father, they also tell Dr. Rohit that he is becoming a grandfather. While celebrating his upcoming fatherhood with his wife, he notices the presence of the superhumans and tries to track them down. Krish begins to notice people infected by the virus and tries his best to save everyone, but he's powerless in front of the virus, which spreads like wildfire. Dr. Rohit confirms in the laboratory that this is the same virus that was in Namibia. They're informed by Kaal Laboratories that it would take 10 days for them to produce enough antidotes for the city. This is unacceptable, as most people in the city would die well before that time. Dr. Rohit notices that despite being exposed to the virus, both him and his son do not show signs of infection. He hypothesized that their genes must protect them from its infection. He wants to inject the virus into his body so that it may produce antibodies for the antidote. Krishna stops his father and tells him to inject it in him instead. After injecting the virus, Krishna suffers from great pain, but recovers momentarily. They use the antibodies created in Krishna and delivers it to the masses. Kaul is furious as his plan fails, but wonders how someone can create an antidote that can only be made from his own DNA. He tells his henchmen to infiltrate the laboratories, and they found the whereabouts of Dr. Rohit, the one who made the antidote. Meanwhile, the people celebrates the recovery and creates a statue of Krish, thanking the superhero for saving the city. At night, Kaul's henchman arrives at Krishna's home and tries to kidnap both his wife and father. Krish arrives just in time and manages to protect his family. Their combined powers give Krish a difficult fight as they gang up on the superhero, but he eventually gets an upper hand and chases them away while capturing the last one. The ambulance takes Priya to the hospital, but the doctor informs the family a terrible news. They are able to save Priya from her wounds, but at the cost of losing her baby. Rohit and Krishna are both devastated by this turn of events. It is revealed, however, that Kaya actually impersonated the wife and she was actually captured by Kaul. He means to interrogate her about Krish's identity and how they managed to produce the antidote. While acting as Priya, Kaya notices how Krishna treats her compared to Kaul. She can't help but become attracted to the hormones this perfect male specimen is sending her way. Her eyes close as she enjoys the man's embrace. Later that night, Krishna carries her to their bedroom and they share a kiss. And I'm pretty sure the fun they had later that night has changed her allegiance. Dr. Rohit has also discovered that the virus shares the same DNA as their own, and he tells Krishna that he will go to Singapore, where he was held hostage for 20 years, to look for an answer. But it turns out it wasn't Krishna he was speaking to, but rather the impersonator, and she transforms into Priya and prevents Krishna from speaking to his father. Dr. Rohit finds the answer to the virus and calls his son. His whereabouts surprised Krishna as he didn't know his father would be in Singapore. He realizes that his real wife has disappeared and rushes back to his house while his father is taken hostage by Kaul's men. He transforms into Krish and confronts Kaya. She tries to run and fight back but stops after realizing who Krish actually is. She has fallen in love for him after experiencing his kindness and even agrees to help rescue his wife. I have to say that Krish's most important superpower must be his way with the ladies. Dr. Rohit meets Kaul and tells him about the truth of his origin. When Rohit was imprisoned in Singapore, his DNA was experimented on and they attempted to create a clone. They were unsuccessful when the clone turns out to be paralyzed from the neck down, and they sent him to an orphanage. This child would eventually be adopted by a rich man and becomes Kaul. Despite Kaul's evil nature, Rohit agrees to fix his paralysis, hoping that it would change his ways. Krish arrives at Kaul's laboratory with Kaya, and they fight against the beast humans. They're no match for the power of Krish and are defeated one by one rather quickly. Kaya manages to beat Kaul's henchmen and locates Krish's wife. They embrace as tears drop from his eyes. They rush towards Kaul's location after he tells Kaya his whereabouts. But Kaul has finished his surgeries at this point and regained movement in his limbs. He becomes extremely powerful and creates an armor with his telekinetic powers. Kaya arrives in front of Kaul and tries a surprise attack, but he knew of her betrayal and proceeds to rip her spine and sends her flying. Krish catches her, but the damage is done. Kaya looks at the hero as she dies in his arms. Krish charges at Kaul with anger, but it was useless, as the villain has grown too powerful. He slams the hero into a wall and impales him with numerous medals, then dealing a final blow. He leaves Rohit with his dying son and proceeds outside to terrorize everyone in the city. He demonstrates his power by destroying the army and crushing a car with his bare hands. As the sun rises, Rohit tries to use his new invention to save his son by focusing the sunlight onto Krish. It begins to work, but the rays are too strong, and it burns his flesh. Rohit steps towards the laser and uses his own body as a filter, reviving his son while he gets vaporized into dust. The people of the city, led by Priya, rallies together to show their defiance. Displeased, Kal turns a car into sharp metals and throws it at the crowd, but it stops just before reach. Kal turns around and sees Krish standing before him. He throws the metal at Krish, but he pushes them away like nothing. Remembering how his father sacrificed himself, Krish chases after Kal and the two fight in mid-air, with Krish gaining an upper hand. Krish pounds him through numerous buildings, and Kal doesn't seem to be able to keep up with his ferocity. Krish notices that civilians are getting hurt and tries to stop the falling buildings from hitting the people. Kal notices this and purposely collapses a building, while Krish tries to stop its descent. Kal takes advantage of this and punches Krish repeatedly. Even though he's spitting out blood, he refuses to let the building drop, and manages to stop it just in time, but his body is heavily damaged as a result. Kal takes Priya prisoner and tries to kill her in front of her husband, but he stops the blow and sends Kal flying towards a giant magnet. With a last effort, Krish pummels the villain repeatedly and throws him into a building where he becomes impaled. Thinking that Kal has died, Krish drops his guard and gets impaled while Kal laughs hysterically in victory. But what he didn't expect was Krish taking out his father's pen and concentrating the sunlight onto the villain. His armor melts quickly under the sun and he explodes into a million pieces. 6 months later, Krish receives his newborn son, and to their surprise, he shows his power right away after birth. Remembering the words from his father, Krish continues to protect and watch over his city. So what do you guys think about this movie? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like my videos, please press like and subscribe for more. I'll see you guys next time.